Jobs podcast show. I'm your host Fahad Jobswala, and I'm student and interview captain at Hans School Online Academy. So I'm very excited to start this podcast, and I'm a bit confused as well where to start this because we have a truly remarkable and an amazing guest, Thomas Gang. Thomas serves as the associate manager in IBEN, and at the International Baccalaureate IB organization. In this role, he contributes to the development and support of the IB Educator Network (IBEN), focusing on enhancing educational practices and leadership within the IB community. Previously, Thomas Kang held a leadership position at BINUS Business School Semprong in Indonesia, where he worked directly under the president of schools, contributing to the institution's educational strategies and student development programs. His insights into educational practices have been shared on platforms like LinkedIn, where he discussed the parallels between IB schools and Finnish education systems, emphasizing student-centered learning and value alignment among educators and students. I'm very excited to start this podcast with Thomas, and we're gonna explore his wonderful life journeys. So, hi Thomas, how are you?
Hi, Fahad. It's nice to meet you, and thank you for having me.
I'm very It's my honor to have you on my show and to explore your wonderful life journey. And Thomas is from South Korea, and he has a lot of bunch of experiences in this education sector. So it would be really nice, if we talk on education sector as well. So first of all, Thomas, could you tell us what is your story and how did you started your career?
I thank you again. I started my career. I was born in South Korea, and I moved to the United States when my parents emigrated to the U.S. And after finishing university, college, and graduate school, two master's degrees, I returned to Korea. And once I returned to Korea, I started my career teaching in teaching for graduate management admissions tests for people preparing for their MBAs, business administration degrees. So I was teaching that for many years, and then I moved to the school sector. And so after moving to the school sector, I've been working uh, in a number of different roles, including as teacher of English literature, as well as directing high school programs for students seeking admission to top universities in the US, UK, and so forth.
Wonderful. Like your main focus is on English literature. Is that correct?
Yes, my university major, my undergraduate, my bachelor's degree major was English language and literature.
It's really wonderful. So Thomas, why did you choose teaching field for yourself?
For me, it was a little bit of an accident, actually. After I finished my master's degree in the United States, I came to Korea and I was planning to attend more university here. But I ended up teaching in a part time job in South Korea, teaching in the evenings for, as I said before, GMAT, which is the Graduate Management Admissions Test for students getting ready to apply for MBA programs in the United States. So I started teaching that and also GRE for people applying for master's degrees and PhD degrees, again in the US and UK and so forth. And I started teaching those subjects, and I found that I really enjoyed teaching. It was a very rewarding, fun, and interesting job. So I continued in that role for many years, and that's how I ended up in the teaching and education profession.
Wonderful. So, like, according to the calculation, how much experience do you have in this teaching field overall?
Overall, I've been doing this since the mid 1990s, so about 30 years.
30 years. It's a very huge number, and
Yes,
you're like a diamond, for the educators, because you have a lot of experience and you can guide them more better how to do that. Thomas, many people are also talking about to add changes in education sector as per the evolution of AI. They are trying to add AI in the education sector. So, what is your feedback about that? Is it going to be helpful for students?
yes. Well, I think AI is what we call a double edged sword. I don't know if you've heard that expression before, a double edged sword. By that, it means that there are many positive elements, but there are also many dangers and potential negative aspects of AI as well. But most certainly, it's changing the face of education. And in the work that I'm doing in South Korea, for example, it's dramatically changing our approach to education. The entire national education system is thinking about how to change its overall curriculum to match with the needs of the new world in the age of AI. So, for example, the South Korean national examinations after high school for university entrance has been for over 30 years now has been based on knowledge acquisition. So how much we know, how much information, facts and figures and data that we know, and the examination tests that, so that students who know the most information do the best and go to the best universities. However, in the age of AI, that is not such a useful skill anymore, storing all that knowledge in your brain, because almost all or most of that knowledge is right here. And we can, what we need now is the retrieval skills and storage skills and the management skills of information. How do we manage information? How do we retrieve information? So, how do we work with technology to make use of the vast amounts of storage that's in here? So if my brain is the size of, let's say, this coin, this is not actually a coin, it's a little battery, but let's pretend. If my brain is this size, then the knowledge that is contained in here is the equivalent of the the city that I live in, Busan. And my brain is like this, and the city I live in is the knowledge that's in here. So why would I need to try to store so much of that information and knowledge into my brain when I can easily retrieve that information here? And we already do that because we no longer remember people's phone numbers. All we have to do is know where to look up their names and the phone numbers from here. We don't need to know how to, memorize the terrain. We can just use maps wherever we go. Um, so the skills that we need now are very different from the skills that we needed 30, 40 years ago, and even 10 years ago. And now with AI, even 3 years ago. And 10 years from now, the skills will be even more dramatically different. So we need a new way of learning and a new way of teaching and a new approach to education. And the Korean national curriculum is changing and adapting to suit these changes in the modern world.
Wonderful, Thomas. Very great to hear from you about all these things. And as I already mentioned, you are very experienced in it, so you better know about the education system. You better know if we do changings in it. So will what will we get? As an outcome. And our mentor Sarihan also says the same thing you've just mentioned, that we have now knowledge in this, in mobile phone, and we no longer need it to store all the information in our head, in our brain, because our brain has a limited size. Our creator made it like a limited, for limited storage. We can't um, get a lot of storage in it. We can't memorize a lot of things, so we absolutely need something who can memorize all these things, who can transfer all this knowledge to us, and who can help in all these things. So it's really wonderful. So, like, can you walk us through now IBEN identities, identifies, trains, and supports workshop leaders, site visitors, and consultants?
Yes. So to talk about IBEN, I really need to talk about IB first and foremost. And IB, International Baccalaureate, is an organization that started in Geneva, Switzerland, or it's headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. It started in Europe in 1968, founded in 1968, and it was started originally by diplomats in Europe. When diplomats would move from, for example, the ambassador of France would change their ambassadorship and suddenly become the ambassador of the United Kingdom, or then become the ambassador of Germany or Czechoslovakia or Poland, for example. And so when the ambassadors would move around, they needed to make sure that the education of their children were adequate and consistent. But that was a very difficult challenge because when they moved from country to country, the curricula of each of those countries would be very different from the previous country. And so that would be very difficult for their children. So what they did was they thought, well, wouldn't it be nice if we had a school where children can receive a very consistent education, no matter what country they lived in, where they learned important skills for not only for surviving, but also for succeeding and thriving in the world that they lived in, while at the same time developing empathy and respect and appreciation for people of other cultures and other nations. So that's how the International Baccalaureate IB was first founded. And because the program and the curriculum was very good and very successful, many countries and many schools said, hey, we would like to open an IB school. Please help us. And so that's how the IB story began from 1968. And now there are over 6,000 IB schools around the world with nearly 2 million IB students from the K through 12 levels throughout the world. Uh, and in South Korea, there are IBEN throughout the world, but what IBEN stands for is the IB Educator Network. So IB Educator Network is not just for people who are teaching at IB schools or uh, for teachers, but rather for people who are doing specific aspects of work on behalf of the IB. So, for example, when schools want to become an IB school, they need to undertake workshops with their heads of school, their teachers. They need to do workshops so that they understand the IB system. And so, in order for them to do those workshops, we need to have workshop leaders to teach those workshops. So, the people who are workshop leaders are part of the IB Educator Network, IBEN. Also, when schools apply for candidacy and apply for authorization to operate as an IB school, we need to have consultants and authorization visits to those schools to make sure that the school's curriculum, the school's teachers, and the school's entire setup is suited to be regarded as an IB school so that we can give them the stamp of approval and say, congratulations, you are now operating an IB school. And so the consultants, authorization visitors, those members are also part of IBEN. When an IB school has become an IB school at the DP level, which is the diploma program, grades 11 and 12 in high school, the final 2 years before entering university, the students who undertake the program at the DP level must take 6 courses for 2 years. And after those 2 years, they must sit for examinations for those 6 courses. And so for those examinations, we need examiners to deliver the marks and the grades of the students who take those exams. And so those examiners are also part of the IB Educator Network, IBEN. So again, there are more roles as well, but the IB Educator Network consists of people who are IB examiners, authorization visit members, consultants, workshop leaders, these professionals who are working on behalf of IB to help grow the IB, to help execute the IB's programs, and to enable new schools to become IB schools. So the professionals who play the myriad roles helping schools achieve these goals are part of IBEN.
It's really wonderful the role of IBEN and IB International Baccalaureate. Is really wonderful and very helpful in our education sector, and the way you explained it is wonderful. Like it started from 1968, and you have before the interview you also told me about the IB schools in Pakistan. Pakistan have 35 IB schools in it, and which has started from 1996, and it's really wonderful as well. So, Thomas, which kind of education system do they have? Do IB have? For an idea.
Well, so the IB schools, so International Baccalaureate does not own any of the schools. We simply certify schools so that they can run IB programs, and we provide the education framework under which the schools operate. So when a school becomes an IB school, they teach their curriculum in a certain way, and we train their teachers so that they will be able to do that, to deliver the education in the way that IB deems proper for the education that's delivered in under the IB auspices. The key distinguishing factor of IB from many other national curricula is that it is a little bit less focused on knowledge acquisition. So, for example, the Great Britain's IB CSE, or the United States, the AP curriculum, or the what's called the Sunung in the South Korean curriculum, and many other curricula throughout Asia are heavily focused on knowledge acquisition. Again, storing a lot of that information into your brain to see who knows more information and who possesses more knowledge. That knowledge, some of that knowledge is, of course, very important. For example, you need basic numeracy skills and basic literacy skills. By literacy and numeracy means reading, writing, and mathematical skills. Some of the basics, you cannot simply leave it in the phone. If I say the economy has shrunk by 6% since last year, you can't just always go to your computer or phone and see what is the 6% from previous. You should be able to do some of the basic things in your head. Likewise, vocabulary. If I say literacy and numeracy skills, and then you have to use the phone to see what's literacy, what is numeracy, and you have to look up every other word, that's not very efficient. You need some basic knowledge, of course. But beyond that basic knowledge, and perhaps a knowledge of things like the broad sweep of history, the causes and effects, and the factors that brought us to the present moment, things like that. Uh, the bigger skills that we need in the modern world today are things like critical thinking, creativity, collaborative ability, public speaking, the ability to work on projects and to execute projects, planning. These sorts of things are much more important than simply I know more uh, math formulas than you do, or uh, I'm able to uh, you know to retrieve more historical factual data than you can. It's less important in today's world. What's really important is our ability to think creatively, to think collaboratively, to work collaboratively, and that's even more so as we reach further advancements in AI. So that's really what the essence of IB education boils down to.
It's really wonderful. And the last thing you've just explained, it's now it's very common as well, and we have to overestimate it. Like we just think we are greater than that, we are greater, and we are more. We have more knowledge than that person. So we have to think creatively, and this thing is granted by our God. So, like, if AI and if these all mobile and electronic devices are crushing all these things, then it's not very helpful for you, because we have to store that creativity in our head, and we have to keep that forever, because it really needs, we really needs that. So, what's one misconception about IBAN's role that you often encounter, and how would you clarify it?
I don't know that there are misconceptions about the IBEN role. I think more importantly, educators who are new to the IB and students who are new to the IB might have a few misconceptions in that they continue to focus on knowledge acquisition, trying to store knowledge, so that, to be able to solve math problems better than the next person, faster than the next person, to be able to remember more facts and data than the next person, and teachers trying to facilitate that by, for example, giving homework that focuses on that type of knowledge acquisition. That to me would be one of the biggest misconceptions about the IB curriculum. That's not necessarily IBEN. And the reason I'm deviating from IBEN and talking more about IB is that you, as a young adult student, I think might be more interested in the IB curriculum overall than the IBEN part of my job. Because the IBEN part of my job is really a much more professional role for people who are working to create IB schools and the accreditation process of doing that. And that's really less important to the general public, because for the general public, to parents and students and even teachers, what they would be more interested in is what is IB and how does that differ from the curriculum that I'm currently engaged in my nation or in my society. And so that's why I'm kind of shifting my response to your question a little bit and moving away from answering about IBEN, but rather answering about IB, the International Baccalaureate Program. Because, again, as I said, the general tendency of most national curricula, and I would imagine Pakistan has a similar focus on knowledge acquisition, right? Who knows more, who can solve math problems faster and better, instead of who can really think outside of the box, who can think creatively, who can work on projects in a much more efficient, effective manner by collaborating with others and thinking about role divisions, things like that. These are the kinds of work that companies and organizations currently are looking for, and in the future will need much more, because the simple knowledge based tasks are things that we can just let the AI take care of all of that. We need people who are smarter than that, and we need people who are able to think beyond what the AI is able to do. Because the basic, even before the days of AI, the calculator could do complex mathematical calculations that we don't need to know how to. I mean, we might need to know how it's done, but we don't have to spend so much energy and time doing that. As long as we understand how that works, we can just use the calculator for handling most of the calculating tasks. So we only need to do the basic for the understanding, but we can rely on the calculator. Uh, 2,000 years ago, or even 1,000 years ago, the abacus helped us to do all that, right? You remember the abacus, which is the little thing with the little stones, 5 stones, and you know. So we were able to do those calculations with the help of devices. So now we don't need to do that anymore. And so the focus, the biggest misconception is really in terms of the focus of education, where that should rest.
Exactly, totally agreed with you. And you've mentioned about the Pakistani education system as well. They are focusing on who can faster do that, who is very sharp and it, instead of who can efficiently solve that problem. So we really needs to improve this, and you know we have a lot of countries who are who haven't adopted that good thing as well, as just Thomas told about, as just Thomas mentioned. So it is all about shifting people's mindsets, educating them more how which thing is better, because there are still a lot of people who are uneducated, who don't go to school, who don't know what education is, who don't know how to efficiently resolve the problems and all that. So we have to work on it, and we need more leaders like Thomas Gang in this world who can really guide them about how to do that, and who are really experienced in it, because people like Thomas have a lot of experience. As just Thomas has 30 years of experience in education sector overall. So the such pupils are kind of like golden pupils for this world, and they really are. So thank you so much, Thomas, for giving me your precious and valuable time for the conversation. It really was a helpful conversation and a helpful podcast for the people, for the individuals who think that what that education is to think more, sharper and all that. But education is to think more efficiently, to resolve problems more efficiently, not just, you know. So yeah, thank you so much, and inshallah meet you soon with another amazing podcast with another amazing guest. Till then, stay peace and take care of yourself.